I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be here today, to be back at this university that Deborah and I both love so dearly, and to be part of this wonderful community and back with our family. I want to also take a minute to recognize my mother and our son, who will be watching this on streaming video, and to remember my father, my grandmother, and my second mother, Ann Davis. Governor Brownback, Chair Board of Regents Emmert, Judge Milgren, members of the Platform Party, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today and for taking part in this ceremony. This is such a wonderful occasion. It's something that I never dreamed in my wildest imagination could possibly happen. And I think back on the folks who hired me here when I was a pretty green 24-year-old who really didn't know much about anything, but they gave me a chance. And for that, I will be eternally grateful. And it really is humbling to be counted among the greats of this university, Morrison, Corbin, Alberg, and Beggs. The title of my talk today is Ad Astra. Kansans will recognize this as part of our motto, Ad Astra per aspera, to the stars through difficulty. While our motto specifically refers to the travails of statehood, we know today that we also live in very difficult times. And we think back on our forebears and the pioneers that built this state, and I don't believe for a minute that that pioneering spirit has left this state. We, like our founders, are living in difficult times. But one part of our state's motto, Ad Astra, to the stars, speaks to how this university can lead the way to a future that is brighter than we can conceive, and in which our children and grandchildren can live prosperous, meaningful, and fulfilling lives. To do so, we're going to need to raise our own sights to the stars. WSU is an intellectual giant in the middle of the country that's awakening. It's setting direction, and it's moving with purpose. It is that giant that can reach higher than anyone ever expected. You have the capacity to reach the stars. Friends, you are that good. I've been visiting academic departments, and I can't tell you the number of times that I've turned to our provost and said to him, does anyone know this is going on at this university? The level of quality, the high level of competence of this faculty is second to none anywhere. Several weeks ago, we began a strategic planning process. It was a great start. We had over 400 people into the Koch Center, people from the community, from the university, faculty, students, staff, alumni, supporters, people who love this university and came together and met in small groups to talk about the future of the university. What did they want this place to be as we move forward? And one group, as we did reports, one group I thought said it perfectly. Best I've ever heard. They said, you know, we're an aw shucks university in an aw shucks city in an aw shucks state. I didn't think that there was a better way of putting that than what they said. And I found myself reflecting on it and thinking about an old Gary Cooper cowboy movie from the 1930s. Y'all know that movie. Y'all got up early or stayed up late and saw that thing. I haven't lost my y'all yet. I will. You know the one I'm talking about where he stops the runaway stagecoach. He stops the stampede. He gets all the cattle rustlers and puts them in jail. He even goes and gets the money back for some poor widow who was going to lose her house because her ne'er-do-well brother gambled it all away in a crooked poker game. And at the end of the movie, he goes up to his lady love, and she's hugging him and telling him how wonderful he is, and he goes, "Aw, shucks, ma'am, 'tweren't nothing." And then he rides off into the sunset. Well, you know, that was a scripted Hollywood movie, and I think Gary Cooper was probably right. It weren't nothing. They wrote that all down, he just followed it. But that's not what you do every day. What you do every day is something. What you do every day makes a difference. Because of your work and the ways in which you've positioned this university, Wichita State is in a unique position to create a very bright future in partnership with the people of this metropolitan area and of this state. We have the capacity. We have the ability. Now, today's world, unlike the world in which our state was formed, is defined by two really big processes: the process of globalization and the process of rapid technological change. Whatever we think we know today, we probably won't know tomorrow. And whatever job we think we're going to have today probably won't exist tomorrow, but we'll be doing something else very different. Your cutting-edge research, the work that you do every day, creates an opportunity for our students to have a global class education taught by world-class faculty. Think about that. This is the only place in the southern half of Kansas that you can get a global class education taught by world-class faculty. The research that you do every day informs your classes, and your students are learning in ways that others can only dream of because of the work that you do every day. We have great researchers, but we also have people who've come to this university with a wonderful, wonderful set of world experiences. Business people, clinicians, educators, nurses, people who truly bring to the campus a world of knowledge so that our students not only learn how to know, but they learn how to do. Knowledge is one thing, action is another. There's another important asset that we bring because we're Wichita State, and that's we're not just a university in a city. We don't talk about town-gown relationships. We are a university of the city. Wichita State is inextricably intertwined with the people of this great metropolitan area and the people of Kansas. Now, being of the city has always made a great difference. Throughout history, cities have been the centers of learning, of art, of music. And it's no accident that the great ancient philosophers were of the city. It's no accident that the first universities were founded in Bologna and Paris and not in the countryside. Being part of a city has always meant a great deal, and this university is the inheritor of that great tradition of higher education. And all evidence is that universities that are of the city will be at the epicenter of the future of development of humankind. It is where we will be. It is where we are. It is what makes Wichita State special. Now, there's a third element that I find interesting in returning to the state, and that's the continuing state identity as a rural place. Our state narrative includes the wide open prairies and Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and Little Toto. We even had Little Toto for a while. We bought one of those when we lived here. But it includes the Wizard and a few others that some of us might think are quaint. It might surprise you to know that 85% of Kansans live in federally defined urban places, and that 2/3 of Kansans live in metropolitan areas. We are more correctly a low population urban state than a rural state. Now, don't get me wrong, we know that agriculture product processing, and natural resource development will always be critical to this state. We understand that. But the people of Kansas are increasingly urban and increasingly metropolitan, and that's exactly what is happening around the world. People are moving out of rural areas into cities, and that national and global trend is reflected in this city more than any other in the United States. Now think for a minute. Governor Brownback released yesterday a press statement regarding the structure of Kansas' economy, and he pointed out that a recent national study shows that 50% of all jobs in Kansas, 50%, are immediately related to intellectual property or derived from jobs that relate to intellectual property. And intellectual property is what we get when we take technology and we take ideas and we bring them out to the marketplace. Today, 50% of all jobs. That's hardly a traditional state. And if you think about Wichita, we are a huge exporting metropolitan region. According to a 2012 Brookings report, Wichita is 55th nationally in the total dollar value of exports. We're 5th in the growth of exports, and we're first in the percentage of our metropolitan gross domestic product derived from exports. If you don't think that globalization has had a local impact, think about the fact that Wichita State has a higher percentage of its total work product that goes to exports than any other metropolitan area in the United States. And it hasn't just affected how we work. Think about who we are. Think about the neighborhoods with the great diversity, the ability of our children to learn from others different than themselves, and think about the art, the music, the food, the languages that we hear in this community that are all very different than what we might have seen here 40 or 50 years ago. Globalization hasn't just impacted how we work, it's impacted who we are. Now, the theme of this investiture and this inauguration is Ad Astra, to the stars. And those of us who look to the stars love clear nights when you can see the Milky Way. But those of us who look to the stars also recognize that, as Charlie found out, there can be some clouds. And those clouds right now are on the horizon for Kansas. And we all know that clouds can bring storms, and storms can be very dangerous in this state. We have a great danger in this metropolitan area in that the vast bulk of our exports are in one industry, aircraft. The companies that are involved with aircraft are tremendously important, will remain at the base of our economy. But the fact is that they are subject to increasing global competition. And for us to remain competitive, we're going to have to think differently about what our economic base looks like. Now, Wichita and Kansas, when I came back, I heard again over and over again about, we've got this entrepreneurial spirit. Look, Cessna started here. Pizza Hut started on this campus. Look at Rent-A-Center. All the things that we've created as Kansans. But if you look today, that entrepreneurial spirit isn't quite as active as it was. In fact, if you look at recent research on the state, we're not even creating new businesses at the national average, and our business death rate is too high. So we have the capacity here, we have the history, and we need to use it. Kansas has a great asset. It has a tremendously educated workforce, at least by half. The percentage of students who've gone on to tertiary education in Kansas is higher than the national average, though it needs to be higher. But we also have another half of our workforce that is relatively unskilled or completely unskilled, reasonably uneducated, and nowhere near ready for global competition. No state can achieve where that's true. We have to be able to help all people gain the capacity for education and to move forward with a hand up, not a hand out. Recent research suggests that Kansas is going to be one of the leaders in the country in the need for educated workers. It's anticipated over the next decade that we're going to need approximately 300,000 more educated workers in the state. And we're ranked 15th in expected growth for educated workers, but only 32nd in expected jobs for high school dropouts. Education is critical. We have to continue moving forward. Now, we've been talking a lot about the economy and jobs, but I want to step back for a minute and remind us all, as Charlie did, that education is about a lot more than having a degree. You can get a degree. In fact, you can probably buy one on the internet pretty cheaply. In reality, it's the quality of education that matters much more than the piece of paper. It's what you know and what you can use that matters, not whether or not you have a diploma in your trunk. Unfortunately, our nation is in grave danger of forgetting the core purposes of education, and college education is being redefined as a private good rather than a public necessity. It is more and more being seen as a fancy form of vocational education that's aimed only at jobs and increasing income. Well, global competitiveness and earning a living are truly very important. But myopic focus on that one aspect of education, I believe, endangers our entire way of life. The founders of this nation clearly understood that an educated populace was mandatory if we were going to have a functioning democracy. That's why every state created public universities. They didn't do that because they thought it was cool. They did it because they understood that you could not have a functioning democracy without educated people. If you read the founders' writings, it's very clear what their intent was. Take, for example, James Madison's letter to W.T. Berry, where he states, and I quote, "A people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power knowledge gives." And Thomas Jefferson's often quoted letter to Thomas Yancey that states, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be." Given the complications of the world in which we live, we forget the core meaning of education at our peril. And given the speed of change and the confusing complexity of the world in which we live, it's even more important that we grasp the significant differences in cultures and ways of understanding and in finding means to work together. The world in which we live requires the ability to think critically, to understand vast amounts of information, to continue to learn through our lifetimes and expect change. It used to be said the only two things you could count on were death and taxes. Today, death, probably taxes, and change. At the same time, we must be able to find meaning in our lives and to understand our important roles in community and society. The habits of mind that are necessary in our globalized and highly technological world have been and will remain the focus of the humanities, the fine and performing arts, and the social sciences. It's crucial, therefore, that people with high-quality education understand much more than simply how to go to work. I truly believe that our entire way of life depends on the quality of our education, and our founders had that right. Much of public policy discussion today is about increasing the number of people with diplomas. You hear that over and over again. We have to have 60%, 63%, 64% of our people have to be college educated. But there's a real dearth of conversation about what that means. And it's important that we understand and truly never forget that the quality of education is the most important issue. As a very good friend of mine says regularly, Erskine Bowles, access without quality is no bargain for anyone. Kansas has the opportunity to have high-quality education. That's what the state has been about. That's what this university has been about. But we also have to understand that simply going and repeating the information that someone else has given us isn't really a first-class education. That our future really rests on research and innovation. And the caliber of what we can teach in the classroom depends on what we learn in the laboratory and in the field, not just on what we get from books. And unfortunately, when you look at the indicators of research and of innovation, Kansas doesn't stand out very well. We're 36th on federal research and development dollars. We're low enough ranked that the National Science Foundation has given us a special status to encourage us to get more grants. Similarly, we lag in the number of patents per capita. And there's also a federal grants program that is focused on technology-based businesses called the Small Business Innovation Research Grant, or SBIR grant. In 2009, the last year for which data are available, Kansas had 14 new SBIRs, 14. Utah, with a population very similar, had 33, and New Mexico, with a smaller population, had 71. Folks, we can do better. And Wichita State University, given its location, given its mission, can be the center of business innovation for this state. We can become the center of development of SBIRs, of technology transfer, and of making sure that the knowledge that we gain from our research makes a difference for the quality of life of the people we serve. My point is really, in the end, that we are in the best strategic position of any university in this state to make a difference in the quality of lives of the people of Kansas. No other school has an urban focus, a metropolitan location, and the kinds of programs that we have with global class education taught by world-class faculty. Well, as I've become refamiliarized with the university, I have just been thrilled with the quality of what I've seen. And I want to focus today on 5 points. Charlie, you had 6, I got 5. And I tell folks I like that because I can hold a cup of coffee in one hand and still give a speech. First of all, we need to continue to focus on quality in everything we do. Quality, quality, quality. Excellence in teaching, excellence in student support, excellence in service and administration, excellence in outreach, quality. And we have to start with our undergraduates. And we have to assure that our undergraduates have the best opportunities and that we're drawing the best and brightest from this metropolitan area and this state to be students with our wonderful faculty and keep them here at home so that they create the next generation of leadership for this community. And therefore today, I'm really asking that we take 3 actions. Number 1 is I'm asking the faculty to consider forming a residential honors college. Not just an honors program, but a residential honors college focused on keeping the best and brightest here so that they can work with you. This college should be open to every student in every major. But let's get to the situation where students choose us over Princeton because they get a better education at a better cost right here at home. Second, we have a long history, and our faculty senate has a long history of working with students in undergraduate research. We need to expand our potential and our capacity here and focus on active learning with our students. And so today I'm announcing that we're putting $50,000 in a fund for students to apply for small grants to engage in mentored research with faculty members who want to help them grow and learn. And we'll make sure that those students have the opportunity to present those papers that they produce nationally, and we'll join the National Conference for Undergraduate Research to assure that they have an opportunity to find others like themselves and make a real difference in the caliber of education. But this gives them the opportunity to work with our great research faculty and get a global class education taught by world-class faculty. Third, we have, through our Senate, done a lot of work on enhancing teaching quality, on working to retain more students, keep them here. And I think that is a marvelous, marvelous set of activities. I've asked Bob Ross in his capacity of chair of the Senate to work with me on creating a model program for faculty members from across the university to engage together in looking at new ways of teaching that can reduce costs, increase student learning, increase student satisfaction, while not moving faculty members' effort away from the balance they have now between teaching and creating new knowledge. It's critical that we find ways to contain costs, to enhance education, and to increasingly document that we are doing global class work. Quality has always defined this university. It must continue to do so, and access without quality is no bargain for anyone. Now, second, we're the state's research university in the metropolitan area. We need to continue to build our capacities in graduate education, in postgraduate education, and in research. We're making some moves today by restructuring the Office of Research Administration to try to provide greater support for funded work. But I'm also looking to change the funding structure of the Office of Research Administration to free up the indirect cost monies to allow us to build more research capacity, to build more research buildings, to upgrade laboratories, to assure that our world-class faculty have world-class facilities. Third, it's really key that we engage systematically in technology transfer, that we systematically take the products of your minds and get them out to the community to improve the quality of life, improve this region's global competitiveness, to assure that the industries that are committed to Wichita have the best capacity to compete globally, to assure that our education system and our preschool systems give our students the best possible education. And we can only do that if we are actively engaged in technology transfer. And so over the next year, I'm going to be looking to find the resources to create a strong technology transfer office that focuses on helping you bring your ideas to fruition so that we can move them out into the community for the betterment of the people of this state. And one final point I want to make has to do with the quality of student life. I married a graduate of this university, and I know how much she loved this school. I know how much her friends love this school. And since I've been back, I've heard from students over and over about their love for Wichita State and their great desire to have more opportunities to engage with the campus, to improve their learning, to increase the quality of their campus experience. Now, President Biggs took a major step when he authorized for the Radigan Center to be rebuilt and to be expanded. That will make a big difference. But we have to find other ways to enhance the quality of student life. And we're going to be moving quickly to build the first new residence hall on this campus since the 1960s. We need to provide strong living, learning environments for our students so that they can get full benefit of the educational experience that you're offering them. It's a very special opportunity to be here, to study with you, and we want to make sure that they take full advantage. Well, friends, I'm going to stop there. I can't tell you how proud I am to be part of this university again. I think back on Deborah and my meeting in Neff Hall, and the fact that this good-looking lady actually was willing to talk to me was a pretty big deal. And I think back on the colleagues that I've worked with here and the things that I learned, and I feel more like I was a student than a professor and had the opportunity to work with some real greats. John Brazil, Clark Alberg, Paul Magelli, Ron Mattson, a number of people who know what it means to make a difference. This is a great university. It has a tremendous faculty. It has a huge future. We can look to the stars. You are that awakening giant that can reach the stars. Ad Astra.